Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, I want to begin by looking at the last couple of weeks here. This map shows the last 14 days in terms of the percent of normal precipitation. And much of our narrative over the last 3 weeks, at least, has been about how Northern California through Oregon, Washington, and then getting further inland in here into parts of the Northern Rockies were really going to be the kind of focal point for the Pacific jet stream. Well, we do have a pattern change in place, and we have to talk about how long that's going to last. But one of the good things about bringing this much precipitation in at the end of our rainy season for that region was that we've worked away on the drought that's been in parts of Oregon. For the last several months, actually going back about 9 months, much of Oregon has been within the grips of drought, and we have slowly started to bring up the precipitation totals to erode that drought away. And even in the last week, we saw a 1-class improvement in the drought in Oregon, which is fantastic. The places we're still concerned about, and we're going to see this in a few minutes in snowfall totals as well, is kind of north and west of that line I just drew in parts of northern Idaho, but really in much of the state of Washington, where this past year we've really just missed out on some of the major onshore flow events that have, well, relieved drought in parts of Oregon and completely eliminated it in parts of California. So this is just a current update of the Western United States outlook kind of here on drought pressures as we end our rainy season and move into our drier season. Now, what's controlling our pattern in the short term? Well, this is the big pattern change. You can now see we have a dominant ridge. This is a surface high pressure system that's keeping things kind of flowing just like this. So just off the coast, the west coast of the United States today, some very, very strong winds can make for some rough waters out there. But the difference is the flow pattern looks like this rather than what it did look like, which were these huge low pressure systems that get curling up just like this. So big change in the pattern. And the question we have to answer is, how long does this last? Because in the near term, all of our weather systems are going to come right over the edge of that ridge, kind of coming down from the northwest into the northwest United States. So let's take a look at what that flow pattern looks like. And we're going to talk about some of the good things about ridges and then also some of the less good things about ridges. This time of year, as we get out of our rainy season into the drier season, we can really get our crops going. If we do get some ridging, some early warmth, we can accumulate those growing degree day units, those heat units, and things will look pretty good. Now, that's fantastic if we have plenty of moisture already in our reservoirs and in our mountains, which we do outside of parts of Washington. But check this out. Friday throughout the day, look at the ridge get established there across much of the west coast. We're going to be watching over the weekend, so this is now Saturday midday into Sunday morning. We're going to watch a trough kind of come right down here. Remember I said they have to go around that ridge? It's going to come right here along the coast of British Columbia into the northwest. We're going to see what that does in terms of precipitation. You can see the other feature from that trough coming through Monday night into Tuesday morning, sweeping right in through here into Oregon. So if there's a place in the next 5 days that's going to be seeing quite a bit of precipitation, it is coastal Oregon and Washington, and then we'll be bringing in some snow to the higher elevations in parts of Idaho and Montana. Watch what happens after this, though. That pattern change we discussed kind of reestablishes, and look at this ridge coming back in. Now, this is a pattern we fear if it is June, July, and August. Because if we have a ridge that gets established over the west coast during that time period, we are extremely hot, we're extremely dry, and we are setting ourselves up for a big fire season late in the year. But we're not talking about those time periods right now. We're talking about April. And what this does is this brings in a little bit of warmth. This allows for us to accumulate those growing degree day units. This gets this crop going fast. And what you're going to see here is that that ridge tries to stay in place out through the 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, and it's going to stick around for at least a while. But because of this feature called the quasi-biennial oscillation, and that's just meteorologists speak, I guess, for telling you about these winds that are in the stratosphere over the equator, because they're fast right now, the pattern is resisting getting stuck in one configuration for a long time. And by a long time, I mean 30 days, 45 days, even a couple of months. And so the ridge that brings in some warmth temporarily, I'm going to be watching the Pacific Ocean to see when and where we finally break this down. But what this means right now is the pattern is going to warm up, and for much of the southern half of our western region, things are going to be quite dry. So with that in mind, let's just look at the next 5 days. You can see the influence of that ridge. See how all the flow of the precipitation is kind of having to come over the top of it like this. So where are we going to be getting the precipitation? It's going to be coastal Washington and Oregon, but these amounts are not high compared to what's normal for this time of year. We will get some snow here in the Sierra Nevada. And then as this flows over parts of the Blue Mountains and it gets over here into the Sawtooth and Northern Rockies, we're going to pile up some snow at those higher elevations. Southern California, things are going to be relatively dry. I'll show you a different picture of this precipitation here in a few seconds. Watch the timing of these though. Starting us off on Friday, there's just some widely scattered showers in parts of Washington and Oregon, and then just some elevation-induced snow showers here out in the Intermountain West. As we play forward, you can see the dominance of the big ridge sitting right here. So click play, let's pause it right there, okay? We noticed a few moments ago that a system is going to be coming down on Saturday into early Sunday morning right along the west coast of British Columbia. We can see it here. This is Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and then Saturday evening into early Sunday morning. So that one's sneaking along the coast here. Higher elevation snow in the Cascade and the Rockies, some lower elevation precipitation. If you're here in the valley, though in parts of, this is the Columbia River Basin, this is not going to be bringing much precipitation at all. Very low probabilities of it. California, we're relatively dry moving through this weekend. You can then see the next system comes in. Look at this. This is now a Monday. Getting into Tuesday, that next system again rides over the ridge and comes into Washington and Northern California. Southern California, we stay dry though with this next system. That's Tuesday. And then you can see next Wednesday, where's the next one go? Comes into British Columbia and then comes down like this. And all of these systems just diverted toward Alaska, toward British Columbia, and they have to go around the permanence of that ridge here in the near term. So overall, look at the ridge get established here by next weekend. Overall, this pattern brings in some precip to coastal Washington and Oregon, but outside of that, it's a lot of higher elevation snow, and things are relatively dry. So let me show you what it looks like. This is just taking you all the way up to the 17th. So we're looking here at kind of a 5-day precipitation map. And what do we see? Much of our precip is confined here and in the higher elevation, so the Snake River Valley staying dry. It's just all elevation-induced precipitation as the flow comes over the top just like this. So it's rising over the mountains, and it's raining at lower elevation and snowing at the higher. So you can see that much of California, very dry. The Central Valley of San Joaquin, relatively dry. Maybe just a slight chance at some precipitation early next week here in parts of the San Joaquin Valley. But other than that, California is relatively dry. And then you can see right up here in the Columbia Basin at the lower elevations, we're dry too. So also, no major snowfall events forecasted in the near term for much of Montana, which is good because we just blanketed this area with a lot of snow. And we're going to have multiple days of severe weather in the southeast just to kind of keep you up to date on this, which means our river systems in the middle part of the country are going to continue to flood. And it's cool right now, which is delaying a lot of things for us in the middle section of the country with planting, but with other facets of our economy as well. Okay, just to take a quick look at what snowfall totals are expected by the European model. So this just takes us out to next Friday morning. You don't see any huge amounts. The Sawtooth here picking up anywhere between 4 and 8 inches of snow. Blue Mountains picking up some at the higher elevations, but the Cascades are picking up some, not too much. And this is okay. As we get toward the end of our wet season, so this is April 11th, we can see that really the only locations that are still in deficit are going to be up in Washington, which we've been discussing, where those snow reporting stations are at anywhere between 60 and 90% of normal. Outside of that, the mountains are packed full of snow. All right, here's I'd say the good part about that pattern that's setting up, because it is dry, relatively speaking, but look at what temperatures are going to do. You ready for this? As we play forward, we are going to have to deal with one system. Watch it again right here. There it is. That's a system that comes in for the start of our weekend. See how it cools you down here in parts of Washington and Oregon? California, though, through the weekend, things stay dry and they stay warm in the southern two-thirds of that state. Now, as we get into Sunday into Monday, remember this is when we have the next trough sweeping through. Yes, we're cool, but remember this is also the wetter time period, Sunday night into Monday. Watch what happens though as the ridge reestablishes after midweek. So I got you out now to Tuesday morning. Remember, the beginning of the week is going to have a couple of systems coming through. Look at this. Ready? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Look at the heat return under that ridge. So this is going to be a rapid accumulation early in the season of growing degree day units. This is going to push things along nicely, and because we had such a good wet season, most of the western part of the United States, this is going to be a very, very favorable start to things. So I'm thinking about, as we're trying to plant onions, we're trying to get, potatoes going and sugar beets and everything going up here in the Northwest, and we're also seeing some nice precip for the winter wheat. This is also going to be good for all the other crops that are going in this time of year, this warm-up bringing some beautiful conditions in. And that tends to hang around for quite some time. We're going to see this warmer pattern maybe stick around all the way until the beginning of May. And with that, though, we better talk about May. So this is valid all the way out on April 29th. And what do we see? We see a ridge here and a ridge there. So we have this split flow pattern setting up out here, and we're keeping much of the eastern part of the country on a cooler bias. It looks as though, because the pattern is trying to stay unblocked, that by the time we get out to the first week of May, we may feature a flow pattern that is something more like this. Now remember, we have an El Nino going on right now. It's relatively weak and not a major driver of what's going on. We do have some cool water sitting off the west coast of the United States. That'll help reinforce that trough. But it's the warmth over the southeast and the positive phase of something called the quasi-biennial oscillation that is really helping reinforce this pattern as we move forward. But we cover all of this in our long-range updates that come out every Wednesday. Go to my.nutrienagsolutions.com to check those out. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this Western U.S. regional forecast video. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions thank you for your attention. We look forward to talking again really soon. Thank you.